Hi, it's Domenic Priore, 3:07 o'clock p.m. here on the west coast of California. Good to hear you and see you here on LuxuriaMusic.com. I'm doing the Riot Uncensored Strip show today because we're being filmed today by Molly.com. So I'm going to get right back into the music and talk to them, open up the chat room, we'll talk to each other. I grew up in Monterey Park, it's near East Los Angeles. Most of my hobbies was collecting records, going to the beach, and also playing with Hot Wheels cars. I loved hot rods and things like that, you know. I believe with the Crystals in 1963 or 64.
Well, I used to watch a lot of baseball on television when I was young. I always, grew up loving baseball, and I saw the sportscasters just traveling from city to city to ballpark. I said, damn, that would be a good job. This is naive as that. But also just loving the music that they played on radio during the 60s and figuring someday I'll be able to have a television program like this and it would be really, really fun, a way to live, Yeah, this is the Riot Uncensored Strip book, Rock and Roll's Last Stand in Hollywood, featuring the Byrds, the Doors, the Beach Boys, Love, Frank Zappa, Buffalo Springfield, and more. And there's all kinds of really cool pictures in it. Here's Big J McNeely in 1951.
I would say that I'm an author first, definitely, but I also have been DJing for many years. I DJ'd as far back as 1978. I went to a broadcasting workshop in Hollywood. It was in the Sunset Strip on the top floor of the Playboy building where Hefner's Playboy pad used to be. And I had this production shift, and it was like from I guess 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and the sun would be setting, and I just play records overlooking the whole Hollywood from the Playboy Tower. I thought, that was great. It was really, really fun.
And right here we have a picture of Bob Dylan on stage with the Byrds at Ciro's in 1965. This is the beginning of the whole LA music scene really taking off and doing something important. Well, the biggest obstacle in becoming a DJ was the fact that by the time I grew up, music got really lousy on radio. I mean, I went to broadcasting school in 1978, and it was just about one of the worst periods of music ever, except for the 80s, which came a little later. There was some punk and some new wave, but still, broadcast radio wasn't prepared for that kind of music. And so, a lot of us just headed for the ditch during the 80s and found our own thing. And so that's what emerged with this lounge culture by the 90s that Luxuria pretty much represents in some ways. What is Luxuria music? It's basically something that stems from the lounge period of the 1990s. It was a time when we were trying to turn off on the over-amplified sounds of heavy metal or hard rock that mainstream radio was just hitting everybody over the head with. And music just lost 100% of the dynamics that it had as far as white music goes, that's for sure. Because trip hop and some of the hip hop stuff is pretty interesting. And it relates a little bit more to what we're doing with lounge. Lounge was the answer to all that in the 90s, and I think that's how Luxuria pretty much started. My advice to an aspiring DJ would be, don't look into it as something professional. It's something that you could earn money from if you're a club DJ and you get really good and you do corporate parties. If you're going to be a DJ on mainstream radio, be sure that you don't have a mind to pick your own records, because you won't be allowed to. And if you want to have fun DJing, there's a whole new world opening up with internet radio and also satellite radio. And that's really cutting into the dominance of the bad mainstream radio that we've had since the 70s.